Bungie is changing the game once again, giving a massive nerf to Graviton Lance, but also at the same time giving it a buff in PvE and nerfing and buffing a variety of different things in the mid-season weapon tuning. We're going to go through everything, and some of these changes are pretty crazy. Just wait till we get to them. First up, we're going to read, hello everyone, Mercules here with the mid-season 21 weapon tunings preview. If you don't know, Mercules was a content creator beforehand, so now he works at Bungie, so it's kind of cool to see a tuning article from him specifically. He then goes through all the different weapon archetypes and all the different changes. He does mention that there's going to be some big changes in season 22. So this is meant to be kind of a light pass overall, but they are adjusting some of the big outliers. If you haven't seen the statistics from last weekend of trials, this is what they are right now. They're on the screen here. Graviton Lance is really high up there in PvP. So they're going to be bringing that down a little bit, but also giving it some love if you want to try it out in PvE. So first up, they go over weapon archetypes. Pulse rifles in general, we feel pulse rifles are in a good place, but pulses with low base aim assist stat values like the high impact subfamily feel too forgiving of near misses. We've reduced the size of the auto aim cone at 0 stat, which will noticeably affect pulses with stat values on the lower end of the scale with reduced effect as the stat value increases. So basically reduced auto aim angle at 0.8% aim assist stat by around 10%. And then we've got bows. Now lightweight bows have just been trash for just such a long time now. So it's good to see some love or some adjustments made to lightweight bows. Will this be a substantial change? We'll see. Lightweight bows have been one of the least used and least effective weapon subfamilies in the game for a long time, and a lot of feedback around them centered on how much worse they feel than precision bows at anything outside of close range. To address this, we've substantially increased the range at which they can deal damage, and we've improved their accuracy a small bit as well. We also have some more changes to come to all bows in season 22, so get ready for a potential bow season next season, which should improve both how they're affected by reload perks and how well their shots register at long ranges. We'll see. So lightweight bows get an increased fixed damage drop-off start distance from 15 meters to 25, increased fixed damage fall-off end distance from 20 meters to 45, and increased final accuracy by roughly 10%. So a substantial buff to them. I'm not sure if they're still going to be, or if they're going to be contenders for the meta, because I feel like they might need to do more damage, but we'll see how they feel after that does go live. Next up, we have submachine guns. We heard a lot of feedback that the new dynamic reticle, while displaying interesting information, was far too cluttered and made it difficult to use the weapon in combat. We made a second pass over the reticle aimed at reducing both the thickness of the lines and their opacity. It was just too thick for them, which minimizes the clutter when ADS while retaining the ability to show you the effect perks on other actions have on weapons accuracy and aim assist. So summary, general, made improvements to Shira's Wrath ADS dynamic reticle. I haven't actually been looked through its reticle since the changes, so let me know if you think that was a good change or not. Next up, we have shotguns. The lightweight family of shotguns has not been used for quite some time now, so they're giving them a buff. They have fallen behind their precision and aggressive counterparts in terms of effectiveness, in large part due to the outermost pellets being spaced so far apart that it can be difficult to land the entire spread outside of point-blank range. To address this, we have reduced their spread angle to constrain the pattern a bit more, which should move them closer to the other top shotgun options for PvP. Lightweight shotguns reduce the spread angle of the outer horizontal pellets by 15%. Exotic weapons, Graviton Lance. While it was nice to see the Graviton Lance has been returned to glory after its long hiatus, at its current strength, the gun is too easy to use for how rewarding it can be, and the cosmology explosion pushes it too close to primary ammo Cloud Strike for comfort. So that's the reason why it does so well. Trials like we talked about last week. So now they're going to be nerfing the Graviton for PvP, but it's not too much of a harsh nerf. We'll see. At the same time, it lags far behind Revision Zero's heavy burst mode in PvE damage, and that just didn't seem fair. So we've given it a substantial buff to its PvE damage, while at the same time reducing the damage to Cosmology Explosion does to Guardians and removing the extra aim assist that was granted by the Catalyst. We'll keep an eye on Grav Lance moving forward to see if it requires any further tuning, or whether the subs settle it into a healthy spot in the meta. So increase PvE damage by 67%, so it'll be absolutely mowing through ads now. Reduce the extra aim assist provided by the Catalyst. That hurts. That will definitely make a big difference in its usage rate. We've got reduced the damage dealt by the Cosmology Explosion by 40% against players. Damage in PvE unchanged, so the Cosmology Explosion is still going to be very strong in PvE, and it gets a 67% buff in PvE on top of the fact that it's an exotic, so it already does 40% more damage to red bars. This thing will definitely be very potent and very lethal. And we've got No Time to Explain, has been somewhat surpassed in effectiveness by the returning champ Graviton Lance, but given we're breaking Graviton Lance down a bit, we wanted to make sure that No Time to Explain couldn't immediately reclaim the pulse rifle throne too easily, so they're going to reduce the range of the No Time by 10. So there you go. Now Graviton gets taken out of the spotlight, and No Time as well gets a little bit of a nerf. Look at the charts here. No Time to Explain was the number 6 most used weapon last weekend of trials, so perhaps we'll be shifting a little more towards hand cannon meta in PvP. Who knows? There are some big changes coming up here that might shift things the other way. Fighting Lion fixed a bug with the perk application that was preventing Fighting Lion from granting the benefits of its Catalyst. Fixed an issue where the Chimera perk on the Catalyst wasn't applying the buffs to kinetic and power slot weapons. Got it? Perks. Gut Shot Straight. This is a perk that you probably have not been using too much. They're going to give it a buff here. When we initially made Slick Draw and Gut Shot, we wanted to make sure we weren't giving out substantial positive effects that had almost constant uptime for free. We leaned into a little too hard on their penalties in a way that made them often feel more like a punishment and a worthwhile trade-off. As such, we've substantially reduced the penalties on each perk, and in playtest they feel significantly better to use than they did before. Reduce auto aim penalty by 37.5%. Slick Draw reduce auto aim penalty by 33%. So this could be on the menu now. Target Lock is about to get a harsh nerf, so be ready for this. Target Lock has had its time in the sun, but the ability to get such a large amount of damage with relatively minimal effort for accurate players has made this perk an overwhelmingly obvious choice in whatever slot it rolls for PvP. As such, we have reduced the maximum damage it can grant in PvP while leaving it unchanged in PvE. Reduce maximum damage versus players from 40% to 25% and damage in PvE unchanged. So there you go. A pretty substantial nerf to Target Lock. So still should be a decent perk overall, but definitely a fraction of its former self. That's for sure. Everyone's going to remember the heyday of Immortal. All right, future, we have in Season 22, we have a substantial shakeup coming to the weapon sandbox in the form of Zoom. We will have more details to share closer to release, but we wanted to briefly touch on what's going to happen at a high level. The initial changes are going to enforce something we're calling range compression with two main goals. One, reduce the variance between the optimal engagement ranges of our mid-range weapons, auto rifles, pulses, and hand cannons. And two is slightly reduce the average engagement range, increasable by pulling in the maximum damage fall-off distances of many weapon types. So this is going to be a big, crazy change when we have zoom adjustment here. To do this, the highest achievable damage fall-off damage range on almost all weapon types will be reduced to some extent, with certain weapon types being reduced more than others. And then in many cases, the lower edge of their damage fall-off ranges will be coming up. Below, you will find a table with the current damage fall-off start distances with or without rangefinder for all primary weapons, and then their values in Season 22 with the new changes. We do not expect these values to be final, but we wanted to start the mid-range weapons on a more even footing than they are in the live game. Keep in mind, even with their damage fall-off start values being similar, weapons will perform differently once their damage fall-off begins, as they currently do in the live game. Rifle-style weapons will experience fall-off damage more gradually, while handheld ones will experience it more quickly. Hand cannons, oh no. But the differences should be much less extreme. In addition, we have also had hand-tuned a small list of exotics and all special weapons with the intention of keeping them near where they are in the live game, as opposed to allowing them to receive substantial buffs or nerfs with these overarching changes, but we'll share more info on all that later. Got ADS, damage fall-off, start distances 0 to 100 range. Got here sidearms, and they're going to adjust the values. I can pull the chart over here a little bit, but it goes off screen. See this chart here. It ends up being that primary armor weapon type sidearms goes from old base zoom 16.8 to 18, SMGs 22, and at the max was 23. Auto rifles 33 to 39. Doesn't look too bad overall. We'll see what it plays like when it goes live in the game. Auto rifles have the widest variance in available zoom values in the current live game, between 16 and 20 base. For the purposes of the above chart, 16 zoom was used as the base value since the most prevalent, but 20 zoom ARs were reaching 41.5 at 100 range. Other things to look forward in Season 22. All right, hand cannons will be receiving several buffs aimed at improving their usefulness in PvE, including a base reload speed, increase to damage, and increase to minor and major enemies. We already talked about that. That's 75% increase to majors. Sword guarding is getting a substantial rework, including a handful of exotics, including Balance Pass for Le Monarch and some big buffs to Touch of Malice. Really? Touch of Malice buff? That's very exciting. Changes to weapon perks, including buffs to Bipod, Envious Assassin, and Over Under. Definitely looking forward to that Bipod one. We were talking about that with rockets. Very exciting. What about second Balance Pass? Season 23 work is in full swing here on the weapons team, which means a lot of things are still in flux. We do know for sure that Glaives, and yes, the class exotics too, will be getting some substantial tuning, and we're excited to share the details of that as we get further along. For now, we can let you know that we're looking at ways to make them feel better to use without making them annoying to play against, and we're experimenting with things like reducing the delay after firing, or you can melee, improving the base projectile speed, and altering how shield energy is granted. If you're a glaive aficionado, we'd be interested to know how these changes strike you, and even if you aren't, we'd still like to hear from you. So, glaives getting a big adjustment as well. Definitely some exciting times, some exciting things happening. Let me know your thoughts about this down below. Do you love it? Do you hate it? I feel like a lot of these changes are pretty fair overall, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what the meta looks like after all these changes go live. Are we going to inch closer towards a hand cannon meta, or it sounds like it might potentially be an auto rifle meta out there? Who knows what we're going to be end up with after this goes live. But as always, I'll keep you up to date on all the news in Destiny 2. If you're subscribed to this channel, make sure to turn the notifications on. And lastly, click on the screen here if you want to watch another video from this channel. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.